Well, hello again. This is Dr. C. Today we're going to talk about a little different topic. Maybe something you haven't even thought about. Topic is, do you want to live to be 100? Now that years ago would have been kind of out of the question. But nowadays there's a lot more people who are reaching 100. And I think that it's time that we think about it. Nowadays, there's roughly, and it's not easy to get an exact number, but certainly 95 to almost 98,000 people in the United States are over 100. And that's gone up considerably over the course of the last 10 to 15 years. Not unheard of to go over 100,000 in another year or so. And so, again, it's something that we need to start thinking about. Well, as people started to think about it, they said, well, let's find out where people are living the oldest. And so they did some research, and they found that there were people in particular pockets around the world where there were a lot of people who lived to be 100 in that particular pocket. They call them the blue zones. Now, how they picked that name, I have no idea. Blue zones. So the 4 pockets that were identified right now were: number 1, in Sardinia in Italy, Okinawa in Japan, Nicoya in Costa Rica, and believe it or not, Loma Linda in California. And so what they did is they interviewed the people who reached 100 in those localities, and they looked at the population, they looked at what they ate, what they did, etc. What did they come up with? Well, some of the similarities in all 4 of those particular areas. Number 1, far and away, number 1 was family. Family and social interactions. In other words, intergenerational interactions. That was the most important factor. And here, what do we do in the United States? Go live in a senior living facility, go to retirement, get them out of society, basically. You know, that I'm not so sure is the best thing. But at any rate, family. Number 2, their lifestyle. People in those areas did not smoke. That is certainly self-explanatory. It's very important. That doesn't mean they didn't drink. In fact, those areas drank a lot of red wine, as a matter of fact. Nothing wrong with a glass or 2 of red wine. Remember, there's antioxidants in that red wine. Seems to be a benefit. Whether it's going to help you gain a few years of life, who knows? But at any rate, that was the number 2. No smoking and some moderation, but red wine. Number 3, they all ate a plant-based diet. Plant-based. Again, we're hearing about all these different diets, and I've got to talk about diets that I'm going to give in the future here too. Hundreds of diets. Everybody comes out with a new diet, sells a book, makes a few thousand on it, and then a lot of people start it, never finish it. Got to be reasonable about what you eat. Well, these people ate predominantly a plant-based diet. But they were very reasonable about what they ate. They didn't avoid a certain thing. They didn't avoid red meat. They didn't avoid a lot of the other things that they tell you shouldn't eat. They basically don't have a lot of processed foods there, though. That is very important. Processed foods. So they ate a plant-based diet. What else did they do? Well, they did a lot of walking. They also do a lot of farming in those areas. got them out into the fields. In other words, a lot of activity. Not a lot of gyms in those areas, but they got their exercise outdoors by walking, by working in the fields. A lot of social ties in those communities too. The towns got together a lot. The people got together. It wasn't just the family ties, which were the most important, but also the ties with the people in the area. So, social ties, very important as well. The people in those areas all had a reason for getting up in the morning. They had an agenda, and they enjoyed it. That also is very important. So those were the key factors in all that were common in all those areas where people lived to be 100. You know, right now in the United States, the oldest person, 114 years old right now, lives in, I believe, North Carolina or one of those mid-Atlantic states. 114. The life expectancy now has been going down a little bit in the United States, whereas in the world, it's going up. The United States is now 42nd in the world for life expectancy. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. And so, where do people in the United States live the longest? Hawaii. I suppose it's a beautiful state, let's face it, you know. That would bring a smile to my face as well. But that's where they live the longest. The people in the United States over 100, the state that has the most is Connecticut, actually. I don't know why. Eventually, of course, we all have to face the Grim Reaper. We all have to die. It's inevitable. Inevitable. So, what do the people who are over 100 die from? They die from heart disease, like that's the most common in the United States too, heart disease. Not the most common in those areas, those 4 areas that I mentioned though, but they do die of heart disease. Alzheimer's, number 2. Yes, you can die from Alzheimer's. Usually the cause of death for Alzheimer's patients is pneumonia. That's the most common. You can also die of a stroke. That's the number 3. Cancer, number 4. And pneumonia, number 5. So those are the reasons that the 100-year-old people pass. Now, if you lived in Ireland, they have a thing that's called the centenarian bounty. If you live to be 100, you get a check from the government of Ireland. 2,540 euros. And they give those out every year to people who turn 100. Wouldn't that be a nice thing to do here in the United States? Actually giving, the government giving money to you. That's a joke here, isn't it, huh? So, no research being done on why people are not all living to 100. Why? Well, first of all, aging is not a disease, so can't say you're studying a disease. It's not a disease. Number 2, there's no money in it for the pharmaceutical houses to go and study these things to try to find out what's going on and how to extend your life and all. So a lot of demographics research, which is what I've been giving you, all these numbers and all, but no real research genetically into why we can or cannot get to 100. So, at any rate, the people in the United States, being capitalists of course, are telling people, well, that's great if you can live to 100. Can you financially afford to do so? That's a big thing now, isn't it, huh? As we age and as we get to the retirement age, there's always a number of people who want to tell you what to do with your money and how to best invest it so that you'll have some money to live on if you do reach that 100 plateau. Always somebody tell you what you can do with your money. Obviously, they're all younger than you. Not much experience, really. Should you worry about it? Get somebody to help you? Well, if you can't manage your finances and you have a little Alzheimer's, probably not a bad idea. But nevertheless, I think most of us have enough up here. We don't need to get a financial consultant most of the time. Okay, so what the bulk of this particular topic is, the bulk is going to be on my 10 medical commandments. Now, I'm not Moses. I probably could wear a beard. I could wear a robe and all, you know, a big tunic and all. I could come down from the mountain and tell you about the 10 commandments. But let's face it, 10 health commandments. So we're going to put a little bit of that on the screen and all for you as well, so that you can follow them. Okay, commandment number 1, do no harm to yourself. That seems reasonable, I guess, but basically it's don't self-neglect. You got to take care of yourself. We were put on this earth and we're supposed to be our own stewards. We got to take care of ourselves. Now, there's people who can't take care of themselves later in life. Okay, they need help. But basically, if you can still do it, you need to not neglect yourself. You need to follow up on all of your health concerns. You need to get all of the things you need. You got to get your annual physical. You got to take your medication and on time. You are responsible for your own health. Self-neglect, not a good thing. A lot of the cops get called into these houses now. Horrible situation in the house itself. People just gave up. They don't want to take care of themselves anymore. So, avoid abuse. Avoid self-neglect. That means eating smart. Now, what does that mean, eating smart? Avoiding all these damn fad diets that don't do much for you. You need to have a balanced diet. A balanced diet. Carbs, fats, proteins, fiber. Watch your salt. That's it. A nice balanced diet. That's the best diet that you can be on. So, eat smart. Avoid buying a lot of dietary supplements. And as you know, these manufacturers are putting on all sorts of promotions for their dietary supplements. And our wonderful Food and Drug Administration, who's got the responsibility to watch them, is not doing a very thorough job. They can basically say what they want. And they do. And they get somebody on the screen who's probably, if they want to say, put it out to the women, they'll get some young, handsome actor. If they want to put it out to the men, they'll get some actress. With a short skirt, of course. All these nonsense things. They're all actors. All they're doing is reading a script. They don't know what they're talking about. So, save your money. That's one way to eat smart and save your money. Also in that first commandment, getting enough sleep, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now I have a talk on insomnia. Tells you all about the different aspects of sleep. We'll have that program on too, one of these days. So you need that sleep. The obvious other thing to avoid, do not smoke. Do not smoke. And don't drink to excess. And don't use illegal substances. All those things are going to hurt you in the end. They're going to bite you. So, red wine is good in moderation only. One of the most important things as far as mental health goes on the do not harm yourself commandment, you got to continue to learn. I don't care what you learn. You got to continue to keep your mind active. Learn something new every day. And there's loads of things you can learn. I don't care if you have to go to school to do it. I don't care if you have to have a group session to do it. You need to learn something new every day. That is important. Keep those neurons in the brain active. So that's all commandment number 1. Do no harm to yourself. Number 2, exercise regularly. Now that doesn't mean you have to go to a gym and pay to go to a gym. What you need to do is some form of exercise. Just like those people in those 4 areas of the world that live longer, they walk regularly. They also socialize on their walks, talk a lot. They work in the fields, they work outdoors. That's also very important. So you need to get 150 minutes a week. That's not a lot, 150 minutes. You divide that 5 days a week, that's 30 minutes. 5 days a week. Not a lot, but it makes a big difference in your longevity. So exercise regularly. Number 3, socialize. Why should you socialize? Why? Because the opposite of that is isolation. Isolation leads to an actual disease called loneliness. That leads to depression. Depression can lead to suicide. Goes right along that pattern, right along that path. So you need to get out more. You need to socialize. That is very important. The value of socialization is not only to live a little longer, but to have better physical and mental health as well. And to stop the progression of any dementia. Nothing's going to cure dementia. I don't care. No medicines out there that are going to cure it either. Don't waste your money on any of those either. But the best thing is socialization. Okay. Number 4, do good. How do you do that? Volunteer. You're retired now. You got plenty of time, despite the fact that you don't think so. You got the time. There's plenty of opportunities to volunteer. How do you select what you can do? You try to select something that is compatible with what you've done all your life. If you're, for example, like me, or a physician, I try to do stuff that would have my experience help. And then I can help somebody else, volunteering and giving them advice. If you're, say, a baker or whatever, you go and try to help people, help the kids, for example, in the school, if they're on some culinary course. Whatever. Those are things that you can do to volunteer. What are the advantages of volunteering? Well, first of all, it helps the community because you're helping other people as well. Number two, you're avoiding that isolation. You're getting out. And you're doing the socialization as well. Number three, you're going to make more friends. Friends are good. And remember, when I was on Bob Abraham's show, I told you about hugs. Hugs, friends hug. And that's good for both sides. Okay, so you're going to create some friends. You're going to be more physically and mentally capable just with that particular volunteering. So you're volunteering, you're selecting a thing that you've got experience in, and therefore you're going to enjoy what you can do. Nothing can bring a smile to your face more than the fact that you can help somebody else out. Believe it or not. I know I've been doing it for many, many years. And those are the things that I can rely on, I can think back on. It helps me as well. Okay. So you're going to also improve your self-esteem. You're going to think more of the positive things that you can do in your life. That's a good thing. So all of that's going to lead to what we call that graceful aging. Graceful aging. You've heard that term, but this is the way to do it. You're contributing your skills, your experience, and your time doing things that you enjoy doing. That's good. So, there are places that actually put a dollar value to volunteering. I don't know. I guess in the United States you got to put a dollar value to everything. Especially the lawyers, they put a dollar value to any little thing. You got a splinter, wow, that's probably going to get you $100 or whatever. You know, they have a dollar value to everything. And you know what they value an hour of volunteering, say at a senior center or something? $21.36 an hour. Now, how they came up with that number, I have no idea. But if they calculate out all of their volunteer hours, for example, and they multiply by 2136, that's the value. And they go to the towns and they say, this is the value we're contributing to the town and all. I think it's a joke myself, but nevertheless, that's the way we seem to always want to put that into some kind of financial perspective, you know. It's crazy because, you know, over the years as I've done a lot of volunteering and all, people scratch their head. Gee, he's doing some work and he's not getting paid for it. That makes no sense. He's got to be crazy. Well, yep, I'm crazy. I admit it. But, you know, you don't have to get paid in order to enjoy doing what you're doing. And that's what the volunteers do. They're not just taking, they're giving. And that gives them a lot of pleasure. So that basically is commandment number 4, the volunteering. Number 5, avoid polypharmacy, especially the dietary supplements. Believe it or not, you can save yourself a lot of money. You don't need all that nonsense. And in fact, when you go to see your doctor the next time, even your own prescriptions, ask if you really still need those prescriptions. Ask them. Don't be afraid. Number 6, use prevention instead of treatment. If you can prevent something from happening, like if you can prevent a fall, for example, that's much better than after the fact. You've fallen, you've broken something now. Well, I'm going to do something now. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's how the FDA works with their drugs, too. If you have a bunch of problems that arise, oh, now we got to do something about that. No prevention whatsoever. But you, yourself, should work with prevention rather than treatment. Number 7, and I have some questions about it, but I'm going to put it out anyway. Number 7, and that is use the power of meditation or spirituality. Now, spirituality gives you a deep sense of belonging to something, a connection. That is very important. I don't care if you do it through religion, meditation, yoga, whatever. You need to have that sense of connection, which is spirituality. Okay. Number 8, be positive, optimism. Optimists live longer than pessimists, believe it or not. Number 9, address end-of-life issues. Be prepared. Be prepared. Have your will or trust, power of attorney, healthcare proxy, advance directive. You need all those documents. Have them in a pile. Get them together now when you got everything up here. And number 10, you need to embrace second opinions, not just about medicine, but second opinions about your finances, second opinions to help you, guide you with what you're doing. So basically, I guess if you want to be 100, there's some good news. Your kids are going to outlive you, believe it or not. But there's always the bad news. If the kids outlive you, you're going to finance them one way or another. So that's the bad news part. So I thought I'd give that to you just sort of at the end of our little discussion here, because that is a definite issue, and it's not so unrealistic as well. So I hope I haven't scared you into wanting to be 100 years old. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't know. But at any rate, it is a topic, and I hope at least you enjoyed listening to my ranting about, do you want to be 100? I certainly want to be 100, and I'm hoping I can still rant at 100 as well. So, been very nice talking to you, and we'll see you again in the near future. Bye-bye.